had seen the empty safe less than 10 minutes ago. And now this man walked into the room, and I could barely breathe. Not because I was scared, because the whole world changed the second he stepped through that door. The air in the room shifted first. Every conversation just stopped, like someone hit a mute button on every person in that place. My father's security guys stood up so fast and so stiff that their jackets actually stretched tight across their chests. Even the wedding planner, the one who had been whispering into her headset like her life depended on it, she went pale. She went completely silent, and then he appeared in the doorway, tall, black suit that moved like smoke when he walked. A face that looked like it had been cut from something colder than stone, but the thing that hit me hardest, it wasn't how he looked, it was how he looked at the room, like he was counting every single person, every exit, every possible threat all in one breath. One single breath, my heart slammed so hard against my chest I felt it in my throat. Heat rushed up my skin. I hated my own body for reacting like that. I hated that I couldn't control it, but I kept my feet planted. I kept my hands still on the folder in front of me. His eyes swept the room and then stopped, on me. Just held there. My throat tightened. Every piece of me was screaming to look away, to make myself small, to disappear the way I had learned to disappear over all those years of being my father's ghost worker. But I had just spent the last 30 seconds staring at proof that my own sister had betrayed me. That money was gone that should not be gone. And something in me, something that was done being invisible, refused to flinch. Maya Santos, his voice was low. Controlled, it landed somewhere deep in my stomach. Not a question, more like a confirmation. Yes. I was proud my voice didn't shake. He moved into the room. 2 men followed him, silent, dangerous, staying close at his sides, but I couldn't look at them. He took up every bit of the available air. He stopped 3 feet from me, close enough that I could smell the rain on his coat. Close enough to feel the danger coming off his skin like heat. You know the terms, still not a question. I do now. I answered anyway. This wedding was not supposed to be mine. 24 hours ago, I had been sitting in my basement office in the senator's Georgetown estate, quietly destroying the career of a journalist who had gotten too close to my father's foreign donor network. I was good at that. The invisible work, erasing evidence, planting counter stories, making problems disappear. I had been doing it since I was 19, and I had been invisible even longer than that. I was the illegitimate daughter. The dark-skinned girl who never quite fit in the Chase family Christmas photos. My mother, the senator's secret, had died when I was 8. And I had been brought into the household the way you absorb a stain, acknowledged, never celebrated. Useful, never valued. Bianca was the golden child, blonde, polished, groomed for cameras and gala events. She wore designer gowns while I wore sensible pantsuits. She went to fundraisers while I scrubbed through donor databases looking for problems. She was the face, I was the fixer. So when my father announced Bianca's engagement to Damian Reyes, head of the Reyes Network, international arms dealer, the man they called the Silencer, I did what I always did. I stayed in the shadows and made sure the paperwork was clean. The marriage was a business deal. Damian needed legitimacy for his operations. My father needed funding for his presidential run. Bianca got a ring the size of a marble and didn't ask questions. I should have known it wouldn't hold. The morning of the wedding I woke up to screaming, not the happy kind, the kind that makes your blood run ice, cold in your veins. I found my father standing in Bianca's bedroom staring at an empty closet and an open safe. His face had gone the color of wet concrete. One hand was pressing against his chest. She's gone. He wheezed. Everything. She took everything. I walked past him to the safe. The bearer bonds were missing. The backup encryption drives. The USB containing his private messages with foreign nationals. The kind of messages that could end careers. The kind that could start wars. My voice was steady even while my mind was already running calculations. Security logged her leaving at 3 a.m. He sank onto the bed. 400 million, Maya. She took 400 million in cash. I turned and really looked at him for the first time in a long time. The senator, the man who built an entire empire on charm and lies, 72 years old, on his third round of heart medication, and completely terrified, not of losing the money, terrified of what Damien would do when he found out. "You have to fix this," he said. "You're good at fixing things." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Papa, this isn't a donor scandal. This is a broken contract with a man who—" I stopped. "I know what he is." His voice cracked. "That's exactly why you have to fix it. Tell him she's sick. Tell him we'll reschedule, buy me time to find her. There is no time, the wedding is in 2 hours, then stall him." I stared at my father, the man who had kept me useful and invisible for 26 years, the man who taught me to be indispensable by making sure I was never quite family. "How?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer, he didn't have to. I saw it in his eyes, the same cold math I had learned from him. If Damien needed a bride to close the deal, and Bianca was gone, there was only one other daughter, the expendable one. An hour later, I was standing in that cathedral dressing room, and the echo of my own words, "I do now," hung in the air between Damien and me like a warning. His eyes narrowed just slightly. The tattoos on his neck shifted when he tilted his head. I caught a glimpse of something serpent, like something that looked carved rather than inked. I forced my hands not to shake. "I'm not my stepsister," I said. "I don't know what deal my father made with you, but I didn't make it. I found out about this wedding 97 minutes ago." "Maya," my father's voice cracked across the room like a whip. He was slumped in a chair near the altar, face the color of old newspaper. "Don't make this worse. Don't. I didn't take my eyes off Damien. Papa, I'm not the one who made this. I'm just the one who has to survive it." Damien moved closer. 3 steps that swallowed the space between us. He stopped at arm's length, and even with that small gap between us, I could feel the heat coming off him. "Explain," he said. "The original agreement named Bianca as the person tied to your business deal." I swallowed. But an hour ago, Bianca disappeared. She didn't just run. She emptied 3 offshore accounts and took the encryption keys to my father's private server. Silence dropped like a guillotine blade. My father made a small sound that might have been a death rattle. Damien's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the way he went still, the way water goes still right before it freezes solid. "And you think that makes you a suitable replacement? I think I'm the only person in this family who knows where the real money is hidden." I kept my voice level. "Clinical, Bianca ran with the obvious accounts. I know about the ones she didn't find. It was a gamble. A massive, possibly fatal gamble. Damien studied me. His attention felt like physical weight pressing down. Then he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "You're clever," he said softly. "That's dangerous. So is making deals with people who run when things get complicated." I should not have said it. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me to shut up, to shrink, to be harmless, but I was so tired of being invisible. His smile widened just a fraction. He turned and looked at his men, out. The room emptied in seconds. Then we were alone. Damien moved to the window and looked out at the cathedral gardens where guests were already gathering. "Your sister," he said quietly, "took $400 million in bearer bonds, 3 sets of authentication codes, and the personal files on 17 politicians." He turned to face me. "She also murdered my brother." The words hit me like bullets. "What?" "Marco Reyes, found in his apartment this morning. A bullet in his head. Your sister's fingerprints on the gun." He paused. He was her real target. The money was just insurance. My stomach dropped. "I didn't know. I know." His voice was flat. "Your father kept you useful and ignorant. The perfect little crisis manager who cleans up messes without ever asking why they exist." He crossed the room and stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Dark amber. Almost gold in the candlelight. "Here are your terms. You marry me today. You move into my home. You help me find your sister and recover everything she stole. And you do exactly what I say when I say it." And my father, protection, medical care, legal cover. His business continues under your oversight. He gestured dismissively. I don't need a politician, I need leverage. I processed quickly, looking for the traps, and after we find Bianca, that depends on what we find. Not good enough, I need guarantees. His mouth curved just slightly. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you're not in a position to use me as bait. I held his gaze. Because that's what this is. You want Bianca to think she's won. You want her close enough to expose herself. The silence stretched between us like razor wire. What do you want? He asked. My father's protection no matter what we find. I swallowed hard. And boundaries, this is a business arrangement. I'll play the role. I'll help you hunt Bianca. But I'm not. Heat flooded my face. I'm not property. Something flickered in his expression. Not anger, interest, noted, he said softly. Anything else? If we find proof my father had nothing to do with Marco's death, you clear his name publicly. Agreed. I want it in writing. Damien pulled out his phone. Already prepared. He turned the screen toward me. Contract language. Clean and cold. Everything I had asked for. I should have been terrified. Instead, I took the phone and read every single clause, twice, then I signed my name. Damien's smile came slow, satisfied, like a man who had been waiting for exactly this. Welcome to the family, Maya Santos. The cathedral bells began to ring. The ceremony lasted 8 minutes. The priest spoke too fast, tripping over his own words like he wanted to get out before something exploded. Maybe he could feel what I felt, that Damien's patience was a limited thing, and we were burning through it. I barely heard the vows, something about sickness and health, richer and poorer, promises that tasted like ash. Damien's hand was warm when it took mine, his grip firm but not crushing. When he slid the ring onto my finger, platinum, flawless, clearly prepared well in advance, I felt the weight of it like a lock clicking shut. You may kiss the bride. Damien's eyes met mine, held for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then he leaned in and pressed his mouth to my forehead, brief, almost gentle. It felt like a promise and a threat wrapped up together. Done, he said quietly. The priest fled. The witnesses scattered. My father tried to approach, but one of Damien's people stepped in front of him with the efficiency of a wall. Damien's hand settled at the small of my back, possessive, inescapable, and guided me toward the side exit. The car is waiting, he said. I didn't ask where we were going. I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. The drive was silent. Damien sat beside me in the back of a black car, with windows so dark the world outside looked like it was underwater. He didn't touch me, didn't speak, just stared at his phone screen with the focus of a man reading execution orders. I counted the minutes by the beat of my own pulse. 15, 20, 30. When we finally stopped, I expected a penthouse somewhere in the city. Something with views and marble. Instead, we were on the waterfront, in a neighborhood that looked like the city had forgotten it existed. Abandoned warehouses, rusted fences, streets that hadn't been fixed since the 80s. The building in front of us was a fortress. Literally, a converted old armory. Thick concrete walls, industrial steel beams, narrow slit windows that looked less like architecture and more like positions to fire weapons from. No glass, no charm. Just brutal heavy mass designed to keep the world out. Home, Damien said, opening his door. I followed him across the gravel. The air smelled like salt water and rust. Security cameras tracked every step with mechanical precision. The entrance was a steel door that belonged on a bank vault. Damien placed his palm on a scanner. The locks released with a sound like bones breaking. Inside was worse. The main hall was enormous, 30-foot ceilings, exposed iron beams, concrete floors that echoed with every footstep. Harsh lighting threw sharp shadows across everything. Everything was gray and black and cold. It felt like a bunker. It felt like a tomb. 2 men appeared from a side corridor. More security, more silence. Damien spoke to them in a low, sharp voice. They nodded and disappeared. This way. He led me through a maze of corridors, each one narrower than the last, each one darker. I lost track of the turns, the doors, the sheer crushing weight of concrete pressing down from every direction. Finally, he stopped at a heavy door and pushed it open. The bedroom was massive, spare. A king bed dominated the space, dark sheets, a headboard bolted to the wall like it expected to be tested. Heavy blackout curtains covered the narrow windows, a steel wardrobe, a concrete accent wall. No softness anywhere. No warmth, a room designed for function. Damien moved to the wardrobe and pulled out a small black case. "Your phone." I handed it over without argument. He dropped it inside and locked it with a biometric seal. "You don't leave this building without me. You don't contact the senator. You don't speak to anyone outside this organization without clearance." He pulled a tablet from his jacket and held it out. "This is your access to the secure network. Use it to find your sister, and if I don't," he stepped closer. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to hold his eyes. "Then you're just a liability, Maya, and I don't keep liabilities." The threat hung between us. I took the tablet. "Good." He turned toward the door. "We share this bed. We don't share a life. It's for appearances. My people need to believe this marriage is real." He paused at the doorway. "There's food in the kitchen. Security on every floor. Don't test the perimeter." Then he was gone. The lock clicked behind him. I stood in the center of that cold concrete room and felt the full weight of what I had just signed. I was married to a man I didn't know, locked inside a fortress I couldn't escape, hunting a sister who had tried to destroy us both. I should have cried. Instead, I opened the tablet. The interface was military, grade, encrypted, layered with security protocols that would make government agencies jealous. But I was good at this, better than good. I had been breaking into secure systems since I was 16. I found the main directory within minutes. Personnel files, financial records, shipping manifests, everything needed to run a global criminal empire. But there was another partition, locked behind biometric encryption I couldn't crack. I tried anyway. 30 minutes later, the screen flashed. Access denied. Then a new window opened on its own, a file. My file, Maya Santos, born September 14, 1999. Mother, Dr. Amara Santos, deceased. Father, Senator William Chase, active. Education, Georgetown University. Computer science and political theory. Graduated summa cum laude. Employment, unofficial crisis management consultant for Senator William Chase. 2018 to present. Known specialties: digital forensics, reputation management, evidence elimination, threat assessment. And at the bottom, recruitment priority critical. I stared at the screen. Damien didn't take me as a substitute. He had targeted me. He had known exactly who I was, what I could do. He had engineered this entire situation to bring me in. The marriage wasn't a hostage situation. It was a job offer wrapped in a wedding ring. Rage hit me like electricity through every nerve. I was out of that bedroom and down the corridor before I could think. I didn't know where I was going. I just followed the sound of voices until I found a steel door marked private. I shoved it open. Damien's office. Steel desk, tactical screens covering one wall, a weapons cabinet in the corner, and Damien standing at the desk with that same cold focus, who looked up when I walked in. And didn't look surprised at all. "You found it. And not even a question, you lying." I threw the tablet onto his desk. "You knew the whole time. You knew exactly who I was." "Yes, that's it, just yes. What did you expect?" He moved around the desk. Unhurried, completely calm. "You're the ghost, Maya. You've been cleaning up your father's disasters for 8 years. You're brilliant, ruthless, and invisible. Exactly what I need. I'm not a tool you can just... You signed the contract." His voice dropped, quiet, lethal. "You agreed to help me find your sister and recover what she stole. I never said I'd do it alone." "This isn't help. This is manipulation. This is survival." He stopped in front of me. "Your sister murdered my brother, stole $400 million, compromised 17 people, and you think your father kept you in the dark out of love?" I flinched. He saw it, pressed the advantage. "Your father was selling you, Maya, the same way he sold your mother, the same way he sold every woman who got too close." He leaned in. "I didn't manipulate you. I saved you, by trapping me here, by giving you a choice." His jaw tightened. Stay with the senator and become his next transaction, or work with me and burn the entire system down. I stared at him, at the brutal honesty sitting in his eyes like something permanent. Find my money, he said softly. Find your sister, and I'll give you your freedom. What if I want it now, then walk out? He gestured toward the door. The gate is open. You can leave anytime. My pulse spiked. You're lying. Test me. I turned, walked to the door, pulled it open. The corridor beyond was empty. No guards, no locks. I could run. I could actually run. I looked back at Damien, at the man who had bought me, targeted me, claimed me, at the man who had just given me a choice my father never once offered. I closed the door. His smile was sharp, satisfied, smart girl. I didn't sleep that first night, couldn't. The bed was too large, the room too dark, and Damien, when he finally came to bed at 4 a.m, moved through the space like a shadow. Silent and completely controlled. He didn't touch me, didn't speak, just stripped down to a T, shirt and dark pants, and slid under the covers on the far side of the bed. The mattress didn't even dip. I lay there in the dark, hyper-aware of every breath he took, the heat coming off his body. The way the sheets moved when he shifted. It was its own kind of torture. By dawn, I gave up pretending to sleep. I found workout clothes in the wardrobe, men's sizes but close enough, and escaped into the corridors. The fortress was different in daylight, still heavy, still brutal, but the narrow slit windows let in thin shafts of weak morning sun that cut through the shadows like blades. I wandered without direction, found a kitchen that looked industrial, a war room filled with screens and maps, a library that smelled like gun oil and old paper. Then I heard voices, low, familiar, coming from below. I followed the sound down a narrow staircase that spiraled into darkness. The air grew colder, thicker. The smell of sulfur and gunpowder hit me before I even saw the space. A firing range underground, massive. Military-grade reinforced walls, target setups that looked serious, and Damien, he wasn't alone. The woman was blonde, tall, wearing a red dress that had absolutely no business being in a concrete basement at 7 a.m. She stood close to him, too close, her hand on his arm, her mouth near his ear, laughing. Something hot and vicious twisted in my chest. Jealousy, I hated myself for it. We weren't a real couple. This was a business arrangement, a transaction. But my body apparently hadn't gotten that message. I stepped onto the metal observation deck above the range. The grating clanged under my feet. They both looked up. The woman's smile widened. Damien's expression didn't change. Maya, he said, come down. Not a request. I descended the metal stairs. Each step rang like a warning bell. When I reached the floor, the woman turned to face me completely. She was beautiful in that precise, deliberate kind of way. Delicate features, sharp eyes, lips painted the exact shade of fresh blood. She looked me over like a hunter acquiring a target. So this is the new Mrs. Reyes. Her voice had a slight accent, Eastern European, the ghost herself. I've heard stories. I doubt they're flattering, she laughed. In our world, flattering gets you killed, competent keeps you breathing. She extended a hand, Sophia Vanek. I didn't take it. Who are you? His handler. Simply put, yes. Damien's voice was flat. Sophia runs the operation to dismantle the network's weapons division from the inside. The world tilted sideways. You're a double agent. Sophia's smile was sharp. Your new husband isn't just a crime boss, sweetheart. He's a government asset. Has been for 3 years. I processed that fast. The marriage, the contract's all real, Damien said. The organization can't know I'm compromised. You being here makes it look legitimate. So I'm cover. You're a partner. He moved closer. Sophia coordinates the federal side. You handle the digital forensics. Together we find Bianca, recover the stolen assets, and dismantle the trafficking ring she's been running. Trafficking. My voice broke. What trafficking ring? Your sister wasn't just laundering money, Maya. Sophia's expression hardened. She was using the shipping routes to move people, children. I thought I might be physically sick. Bianca, my perfect golden sister. How long? I managed 2 years, Damien said. Since Marco started having doubts about the operations, Bianca got close to him, got access to the routes, then killed him when he found out what she was really doing. The room spun. I need a minute. Take all the time you want, Sophia said, but know this, your sister has already put a hit on both of you. She thinks you're weak, controllable. She walked toward the stairs, then paused. She's wrong. She was gone. Damien and I stood in the echoing silence of the firing range. You should have told me, I said finally. You wouldn't have believed me. Try me. He studied my face for a long moment, then he nodded once. Okay. He moved to the weapons cabinet and pulled out a handgun. You want the truth. Here it is. He ejected the magazine. Checked the chamber, handed it to me. I looked at him. What am I supposed to do with this? Learn to survive. He moved behind me, adjusting my stance, feet shoulder, width apart, knees soft, elbows locked but not rigid. His hands settled on my hips. Heat flooded my skin immediately. His chest pressed against my back. Solid, warm, close enough that I felt every breath he took. Breathe between the heartbeats. He murmured near my ear, the space between one pulse and the next. That's where you pull the trigger. I couldn't breathe at all. His hands moved to my arms, adjusting my grip. His fingers over mine, guiding. The gun felt heavier than it should. Focus, he said softly. Target downrange. Clear your mind. Feel the weight. I felt nothing but him. The heat of his body, the calluses on his palms, the way his voice dropped when he spoke this close. Intimate and dangerous all at once. Now, I pulled the trigger, the gun kicked, the sound was deafening. The target downrange didn't move. I'd missed completely. He didn't step back, didn't move away, just adjusted my stance again slightly. His thigh against mine, his breath warm on my neck. Don't fight the recoil, absorb it, let it move through you. I tried again. Closer, still off center, better. His voice went almost gentle. You're thinking too much. I'm thinking exactly enough. His laugh was a rough sound against my ear. Liar. He was right. I wasn't thinking about the target at all. I was thinking about the way his hands felt on my skin. The way his voice did things to my pulse. The way I wanted I fired. He stepped back immediately. 10 rounds, all center mass. Why are you doing this? Teaching you to shoot. Teaching me anything. You could have left me ignorant, used me as decoration. I turned to face him. His expression was unreadable, because ignorance gets you killed, Maya, and I didn't go through all of this trouble just to lose you to something preventable. The words landed harder than they should have. I raised the gun, fired again and again, each shot finding its mark. When the magazine was empty, Damien took the weapon and studied the target. You're a natural. I'm motivated. Good. He looked at me with something that might have been real respect. Because your sister is coming for us both, and when she does, I need you ready to pull the trigger. 3 days later, I found her. Not Bianca herself, she was too smart for that, but her digital trail, a pattern in the network traffic that matched her behavioral profile exactly. She was accessing dark web markets from a specific address in the outer boroughs. I brought it to Damien. He was reviewing tactical maps with 2 of his lieutenants, hard men with harder eyes who looked at me like a problem they hadn't solved yet. Found her, I said. Damien dismissed them without a word. They left without argument. Show me. I pulled up the full analysis on the main screen. Exit points, metadata patterns, transaction timestamps. It's a fortified location. Former textile factory. She's been there at least 48 hours. How certain are you? 93%. I highlighted the pattern matrix. Her behavior is consistent. She's shopping for false documents, new identities she's planning to run. He studied the data with the focus of a man planning something final. We move tonight. I'm coming with you. No. Yes. I met his eyes. I'm the guarantee. Remember, if I break, the deal falls apart. You need me there to confirm it's actually her. This isn't a surveillance job, Maya. It's a breach. There will be gunfire. Then teach me to keep my head down. His jaw tightened. You're not trained. I'm the only person who knows Bianca's tells, her patterns, the way she thinks. I stepped closer. You want her alive so she can lead you to the trafficking network. You need me there to talk her down before your people put a bullet in her. The silence stretched. Then he nodded once. Gear up. We leave in 2 hours. The neighborhood in Queens looked like the city had just given up on it. Abandoned warehouses, rusted chain-link fences, streets that hadn't seen maintenance in decades. We came in 3 vehicles, tinted windows, moving in silence. Damien rode with me, quiet and focused, checking his weapons with the efficiency of someone who had done it 1,000 times. He had given me a vest lightweight but solid, a communications unit, and a knife. If it goes wrong, he said, you run, don't fight, don't play hero, just run, and I'll find you. I didn't argue. The factory loomed ahead. 4 stories of broken windows and graffiti, but the perimeter was too clean. Motion sensors on the fence, cameras at every corner. Bianca had fortified it. Damien signaled. His crew moved like shadows, splitting into teams, moving toward 3 separate entry points. I stayed with Damien. He cut the fence with bolt cutters that made no sound. We slipped through and moved toward the east entrance. A loading dock, a rusted door that looked abandoned. It wasn't. Damien tested the handle, locked. He pulled a small device from his pocket. Magnetic override. The locks released with a soft click. We were in. The interior was a maze of concrete pillars and rusted industrial machinery left to rot. Every footstep echoed despite everything we did to silence them. Damien moved with his weapon raised, scanning corners. I stayed close enough to feel his heat, far enough not to get in his way. We cleared 2 floors, empty, abandoned, then gunfire erupted from above. Damien shoved me behind a pillar as bullets tore through the exact space we had just been standing. Concrete exploded, metal screamed, stay down, he ordered. He returned fire in controlled bursts. Professional. Efficient. 2 shooters on the upper-level catwalk dropped, but there were more, pouring down the stairs. Armed, coordinated, 2 Welt, trained to be Bianca's people. This was a trap. Damien realized it the same second I did. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the exit. We ran through the space between the machinery, bullets tracking our movement. 1 shot grazed Damien's shoulder. Blood bloomed through his jacket. He didn't stop. We hit the stairs and he kicked open the door to the main office level. Swept the room empty, but the walls, oh no, the walls. They were covered in surveillance photos. Damien's routines. His properties, his people, blueprints of the fortress, detailed files on every person close to him. Bianca had been hunting him for months, and in the center of it all, a message written in red paint. Wrong, sister. Damien's face went hard as stone. Then the building shook. Explosion from below. The whole factory was wired. We ran down through the smoke, past bodies and debris. Damien's hand locked around mine and pulled me through the chaos. We made it to the car just as the building collapsed behind us. The drive back was silent except for my own ragged breathing. Damien drove one-handed, his wounded shoulder leaving blood on the steering wheel. He didn't look at me. Just drove like something worse than us was still chasing us. Maybe it was. When we pulled into the fortress garage, I was shaking. Not from fear, from rage. Bianca had tried to kill us. My sister, my blood, she had baited us, trapped us. Tried to bury us under that factory. Damien killed the engine, turned to look at me. You did good, he said quietly. I almost got you killed. You kept your head, didn't panic. That's more than most trained people do. He reached for the door handle. I stopped him with a hand on his arm. Your shoulder. It's nothing. It's bleeding. I've had worse. But he didn't pull away when I leaned closer to look at it. Didn't move when my fingers brushed the torn fabric. We need to clean it, I said softly. His eyes met mine. Dark, intense. Something shifting in their depths that made my pulse spike. Later, he said. His voice was rough. First, we figure out how she knew we were coming. The words broke whatever had been building in the air between us. I pulled back and nodded. But as we walked back into the fortress, his hand found the small of my back again. Possessive, protective, and I didn't pull away. The crime boss who called the meeting was a man named Victor Chen. 60-something, silver hair slicked back with something that caught the light like oil, expensive suit that couldn't hide the violence sitting in his eyes, or the way his hands rested on the table like a man who was always ready to reach for something. He had requested the meeting. Neutral Ground, an underground club in Chinatown that smelled like money and fear, and the particular quiet of men who dealt in other people's lives. Damien had wanted to refuse. I had heard the argument 2 nights ago through the bedroom door. Sophia's voice crisp with tactical assessment. Damien's low and dangerous, both of them circling the same problem from different angles. But Victor claimed to have information about Bianca's location. Information he'd only share face to face, and we were running out of leads, running out of time, running out of the kind of patience that kept people breathing. So we went. I wore black, a dress that Sophia had provided after spending an hour studying my measurements like a military quartermaster. Simple at first glance, high neck, long sleeves, hem just above the knee, but the fabric moved like water. Expensive enough that it quietly announced wealth. Cut precisely enough that it said, "This woman knows her value and she's not negotiating." My hair pulled back severely, my jaw severe. Minimal jewelry except for the platinum ring. I couldn't remove even if I wanted to. And I didn't want to. That realization had hit me somewhere between the firing range and the factory raid. Somewhere between learning that Damien had been protecting me for a decade and watching him take a bullet meant for both of us. The ring wasn't a shackle anymore. It was a declaration. You don't speak. Damien had said in the car, his hand resting on my thigh as the city blurred past tinted windows. You sit, you observe, you let them think you're just decoration. His fingers tightened, and if they threaten you, I deal with it. The words had been quiet. Final, the tone of a man who had burned buildings before and would do it again without hesitation. I had covered his hand with mine, threaded our fingers together. We deal with it. I corrected softly. His eyes had found mine in the darkness of the car. Something fierce and possessive and almost frightened moving through them. Together, I said, that's the deal now. He had pulled me across the seat and kissed me hard enough to bruise. Hard enough that I could taste something desperate underneath all that control. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does... His hand had cupped my face. You run. You don't look back. You survive. I had kissed him again. Softer, slower, we both survive. I whispered against his mouth, or neither of us does. Now, walking into the club with Damien's hand at the small of my back, I felt that promise settle into my bones like something permanent. The club was a cave of brick and velvet, low lighting. Jazz playing too soft to cover the tension. Private booths separated by heavy curtains. Victor sat in the back booth with 4 guards around him. He smiled when we approached, all teeth, no warmth. The silencer. He gestured to the seats across from him, and his beautiful new wife. Please. Damien's hand guided me into the booth. We sat close enough that our thighs touched. Victor poured wine from a bottle that probably cost more than most cars. He pushed 2 glasses across the table. Damien didn't reach for his. I followed his lead. Victor's smile tightened. You insult me with suspicion. I insult you with intelligence. Damien's voice was flat. You work for the senator. Anything you tell me is already compromised. I work for profit. Victor sipped his wine. The senator's presidential run is finished. Your wife's sister made sure of that when she killed Marco Reyes and stole your money. He looked at me with eyes like oil slicks. The senator wants his loose ends tied up, starting with the daughter who knows too much. The words landed like bullets. Damien's hand moved toward his weapon. His guards tensed simultaneously. We were outnumbered 5-2, and I didn't count. Victor laughed. Peace. I'm simply the messenger. The senator wants her gone. I'm here to help with that. He raised his wine glass in a small toast. To business, that's when I smelled it, under the wine's bouquet, under the tobacco smoke and aged wood. Sharp, chemical, bitter almonds, a poison derivative. The wine was poisoned. Not both glasses, just Damien's. The one Victor had poured first with his hand briefly hidden beneath the table. My mind raced. If I warned Damien out loud, Victor's guards would open fire. We'd die right here in this booth. But if I didn't say a word, Damien would drink the poison and die anyway. I made a choice. I reached for Damien's glass before he could lift it. To business, I said, and I drank. The wine hit my tongue, sweet, rich, then the chemical burn underneath. It slid down my throat like acid. Damien's eyes went wide. Maya, I smiled at Victor. It's excellent. Then the poison hit my system. My vision blurred, my pulse spiked wildly, the room tilted sideways. I heard Damien roar, heard the table overturn, heard gunfire and screaming. Then everything went dark. I woke up to pain. My throat burned. My chest felt like someone had driven nails through it. Every breath was glass, but I was alive. The room came into focus slowly. The master bedroom, heavy curtains drawn, fireplace crackling, and Damien. He sat in a chair by the fire with his elbows on his knees and his face buried in his hands. He looked completely destroyed, dark circles under his eyes, blood on his shirt, his own and probably others. He hadn't slept maybe for days. You're awake. His voice was rough, broken. I tried to speak. My throat wouldn't work. He was beside me in an instant, pressing a glass of water to my lips. Small sips. Don't rush. The water helped. Barely. How long? I managed. 3 days. He set the glass down with hands that shook. You've been unconscious for 3 days. The antidote. I burned through Chinatown to find it. His eyes met mine. I killed Victor with a dinner knife and interrogated his chemist for 14 hours before he gave me the formula. You burned your cover. I don't care. The words came out savage. You drank poison meant for me, Maya. You almost died. I saved your life. You shouldn't have had to. His hand cupped my face. Rough and gentle at the same time, desperate. You're not supposed to be the one taking the hits. I'm not taking anything. I leaned into his touch despite myself. I'm making choices, stupid choices, strategic choices. My voice was getting stronger. If you'd died, I'd have lost my only real ally. The contract would be void. I'd be alone with the senator hunting me. His thumb traced my cheekbone. And if you'd died, the question hung between us, then you'd have lost your strategist, I said softly. His laugh was rough, broken. Is that all you are, a strategist? What else would I be? He didn't answer with words. He kissed me, not like the ceremony, not careful or gentle, deep, possessive, desperate. His mouth claimed mine with the hunger of a man who had thought he had lost something irreplaceable. His hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, taking everything I would give and asking for more. I should have pushed him away, should have remembered this was a contract, a transaction, a business arrangement. Instead, I pulled him closer. My hands found his shoulders, his neck, his hair. I kissed him back with 3 days of fear and fury, and something I didn't have a name for yet. He tasted like desperation and survival. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Why? I whispered. He rested his forehead against mine. Because I've been watching you for 10 years. Because your mother saved my life when I was 17 and starving on the streets. Because I forced this marriage to protect you from your father. Not to use you. I pulled back to look at him. What? The men I've killed? His voice went quiet. The ones whose tongues I removed, they were your father's people. The ones who talked about selling you the same way they sold your mother. I went very still. My mother didn't die in a car accident. No. His jaw tightened. Your father traded her to pay a debt to the organization. The same one that just tried to poison me 3 days ago. She saved me first, hid me in her medical clinic, fed me, got me documents, made me promise that if anything ever happened to her, I would protect her daughter. The world tilted again. You've been protecting me for 10 years. I've been dismantling your father's network piece by piece, he said, tracking every threat, eliminating the men who spoke about you like you were merchandise. His voice dropped lower. I didn't force this marriage to trap you, Maya. I forced it to save you. The fire crackled. I stared at him. The man who had bought me, claimed me, protected me from a threat I never even knew existed. The man who had just burned his cover to keep me breathing. Show me, I said softly. Show you what? The tattoos. I touched his collar. Show me how far they go. His eyes darkened. Then he pulled off his shirt. The tattoos covered him. Not just his neck, his shoulders, his chest. His arms, script and serpents and smoke. Characters I couldn't read but somehow felt in my bones. This one, he said, touching his shoulder. The date I met your mother. This one. His ribs, the promise I made her. This one. He touched just above his heart. Your name hidden in the characters. My full name inked into his skin for 10 years. I traced the letters with shaking fingers. He caught my wrist, gentle, his pulse hammering against my palm. The barriers crumbled. I kissed him again, slower this time. Deeper, my hands moved across the landscape of his body, scars and ink and muscle and heat. He lifted me carefully, mindful of my injuries, and settled me in his lap. His hands found my waist, my hips, my thighs, not rough, reverent, like I was something precious he had fought to keep. Maya, he breathed my name against my mouth. If you want me to stop, don't. The single word broke whatever restraint he had been holding on to. He kissed me like a man who had been waiting years to get here. His mouth moved to my jaw, my throat. I gasped his name. He pulled back just slightly, looking at me with eyes gone completely molten. Tell me you want this, he said roughly. And not because of the contract, not because you're grateful. Tell me you want me. I want you, I whispered. God help me, I want you. He stood lifting me with him like I weighed nothing, carried me to the bed, laid me down on dark sheets that smelled like him. Then he covered my body with his. What followed was fire and shadow, and the sound of my name on his lips like something sacred. I woke to sunlight, real sunlight. Someone had opened the blackout curtains. Morning poured through the narrow windows in shafts of amber and gold that cut through the fortress's permanent shadow. Damien was still beside me, one arm wrapped around my waist, his breathing deep and even. His body curved around mine like he was protecting me even in sleep. One leg tangled with mine, his face buried in my hair, asleep. I had never seen him sleep. He looked younger like this. The brutal lines of his face softened by rest. The constant tension in his jaw finally released. The tattoos on his shoulder were visible above the sheets. The characters that spelled my name sitting directly over his heart. I traced them with gentle fingers. He had carried my name on his body for 10 years. 10 years of watching, protecting, waiting. His eyes opened. Dark amber, catching the morning light, going from sleep, soft to fully alert in a single breath, then softening again when they found me. Hi, I said softly. Hi. His voice was rough with sleep, deeper, intimate in a way that made my stomach tighten. How do you feel? Like I drank poison. His expression tightened immediately. I'm joking, I added quickly. Mostly, I shifted closer, pressing my palm flat against his chest where his heart beat steady and strong. I'm sore, tired, but alive because you're stubborn, because you burned Chinatown for the antidote. I tilted my head back to look at him properly. How many people did you kill? His hand slid up my spine, warm and calloused and impossibly gentle. Does it matter? Yes. Victor himself, his 4 personal guards, the chemist who mixed the poison after I convinced him it was in his best interest to cooperate. He paused. 3 enforcers who tried to stop me from leaving with the formula. That's 8 people, 9. His jaw tightened. Victor's second wife was there. She pulled a gun. A pause. Did she hit you? No. The word was flat. Final. I understood what it meant, what he had done. I would have burned the entire city, he said quietly. Every building, every street, everyone who had ever looked at Victor without disgust. His eyes met mine. I would have left nothing standing if it meant keeping you alive. The words should have terrified me, should have made me pull back from the casual brutality, the complete lack of regret. Instead, I pulled him closer. I kissed him with the desperation of someone who had looked death in the face and chose to spit in it. His mouth opened under mine, hot and hungry, his hand fisting in my hair as he rolled us over. I gasped against his lips. The movement pulled at injuries not quite healed, a sharp reminder that I was still fragile. He froze immediately. I'm hurting you. No. I wrapped my legs around him and locked him in place. Don't stop. Maya, I need you. The honesty of it surprised us both. His forehead dropped to mine, his breath coming hard and fast. You have me, he said. You've had me since I was 17, and your mother made me make that promise. His voice went lower. But somewhere between that promise and now, protecting you stopped being enough. I started wanting you, needing you, dreaming about you in ways that had nothing to do with debts or honor. Show me, I whispered. His laugh was rough, broken. You're injured. I'm alive. I traced the sharp angles of his face. Because of you, so show me. Maya, please. The word undid him. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper, and his hands mapped every curve of me through the thin silk, learning every hollow, every place that made me gasp. I arched into him, needing everything. Afterward, we lay in the morning light, tangled in the sheets and in each other. Tell me about my mother, I said finally. His fingers traced slow patterns on my skin. I was 17. The organization had just killed my parents for failing to pay protection. I was alone, trying to survive. What happened? I collapsed outside a medical clinic. Your mother found me. He paused. She could have called the police, turned me in. Instead, she hid me in the supply room, fed me, treated my wounds. For how long? 3 months. She got me documents, a new identity, arranged passage to New York. His voice went quiet. She asked for nothing in return. Just made me promise if she ever needed help, I'd come. But she didn't ask for help. No, she died 6 months later. He pulled back to look at me. Your father told everyone it was a car accident, but I had people looking into it. There was no accident. She was alive one day and gone the next. He traded her to pay a debt to the same organization that wanted you dead 3 days ago. I processed that slowly. My father traded my mother for money, then kept me around because I was useful. Damien's jaw tightened. I've been watching you since you were 16, tracking your father's operations, eliminating the men who spoke about you like you were for sale. He said it without remorse. There were 12 of them, over 8 years. You've been protecting me this whole time. His hand cupped my face. I owed your mother a debt, but somewhere along the way it stopped being about her. It became about you. His thumb traced my lower lip. You're brilliant, Maya, fierce, dangerous. You fix problems that would destroy most people. You survive in shadows and don't apologize for any of it. He leaned closer. You're everything I didn't know I needed. I'm a crisis manager with trust issues. You're someone who doesn't know her own power yet. The words hit harder than they should have. I kissed him soft, then deeper. When we broke apart, I said, my father needs to pay. He will. Not just pay. I want him destroyed. I want everything he built burned to the ground. Damien's smile was sharp and savage. Then we burn it together. The war room was cold, always cold. But that morning, with the truth about my mother's murder still raw in me, with everything Damien had said still echoing through my bones, it felt like a tomb, like a room built for the dead. I had spent the last 18 hours breaking the final encryption on my father's private server. Damien had given me military, grade decryption tools, software that technically didn't exist, algorithms that would make experts weep. I had used every technique I knew. At 4 in the morning, the system cracked. The ledger wasn't hidden in some elaborate digital fortress. It was sitting there protected with my mother's maiden name, spelled backwards, like my father had wanted to remember exactly what he had done. Like he needed the reminder of his own sins every single time he opened the file. It was a spreadsheet. Methodical, clinical, the kind of formatting you'd use for inventory management or quarterly earnings. Each row a transaction. Each column a detail, names, dates, amounts, destinations, status updates. My mother's name was on line 47. Dr. Amara Santos delivered payment $500 zeros, zero debt forgiveness plus $200 zero cash status fulfilled. Like she was a package, a commodity, a problem solved with paperwork and a wire transfer. I read the entire ledger. 53 entries spanning 20 years. Politicians' daughters who had threatened to talk. Journalists who had asked too many questions. Witnesses who knew too much. Mistresses who had gotten inconvenient. All sold, all delivered, all by my father. And at the bottom, a new entry, not yet complete, but scheduled, detailed, with delivery instructions and contingency plans. Maya Santos delivery to the Viper network via Bianca Chase as intermediary. Payment $15 million cash plus unlimited campaign funding plus removal of competitor candidate. Delivery date post. Election special instructions. Subject is Hive. Al. You skill set. Recommend intact delivery for maximum return. My father had planned to sell me. Not just sell. He had negotiated premium pricing for my abilities. He had written clinical notes about my value like I was livestock being appraised at an auction. I sat in that cold room and felt something inside me break. Not shatter, breaking would be too loud, too dramatic, too much like the emotional displays he had always punished me for. This was quieter, colder, the death of whatever small remaining love I had felt for the man who raised me. The final cut of a bond that had been fraying since I was 8 years old, and understood that he looked at me differently than he looked at Bianca. Not with love, with appraisal. Damien found me an hour later. He didn't speak, just read the screen over my shoulder, his hand settling on the back of my neck, his thumb stroking the pulse point there, like he needed the reminder that I was alive, that I was here, that I was his. Then he said quietly, "What do you want to do?" I stared at the ledger, at the proof of my father's sins laid out in clean rows and columns, at the evidence that would destroy him completely. "I don't want to fix this," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I don't want to bury it or spin it or make it disappear." His hand tightened on my neck, grounding me. "I want to be the scandal that ends him." I looked up at Damien, at the man who had protected me in the dark, who had killed for me, who had burned his cover to keep me breathing. The senators hosting a victory gala tonight, presidential campaign launch, 500 guests, live media coverage. Damien's smile came slow, dangerous, then let's give them a show. He pulled me to my feet, turned me to face him. "You understand what this means. Once we do this, there's no going back. Your father is destroyed, your family name is scorched, and I'm free. I finished." "And us," his voice went careful. "What about us? This started as a contract, a transaction." He stepped closer. But somewhere between the cathedral and right now it became something else. His hand cupped my face. "I don't want a contract wife, Maya. I want a partner, an equal, someone who stands beside me in the daylight and in the shadows." His voice dropped. "I want you, all of you, not because of debts or old promises, but because you're the only person I've ever met who's as ruthless as I am, and somehow still has a soul worth something." I touched his face, the sharp angles, the brutal beauty. "I want that too." He kissed me deep, claiming. When we broke apart, he said, "Then let's burn it all down." He walked to the weapons cabinet, pulled out a handgun and a magazine, extended them to me. "The gala is tonight. Your father will be there. Bianca will be there." He loaded a round into the chamber. "And you're going to end this?" I took the gun, felt its weight. "Together," I said. His smile was sharp. Together, we spent the rest of the day planning. Sophia arrived with tactical support, 3 teams. Federal backing, surveillance equipment. The plan was simple, elegant, brutal. We would crash the gala. Broadcast the ledger of souls on every screen in the room. Let the world see exactly what Senator Chase had built. And then let justice take it from there. As the sun set, I dressed for war. White dress, the same one from the cathedral, but this time paired with blood, red lipstick and combat boots hidden under the hem. I looked like a ghost. I looked like vengeance. Damien found me in the bedroom, all black, tactical vest under his jacket, weapons hidden but accessible. He looked at me the way you look at something you made yourself, something meant for a specific purpose. Ready, I checked my weapon, loaded, safety off. I've been ready my entire life. He pulled me close, kissed me hard. "Let's go make headlines." The car ride to the gala was silent. I counted my heartbeats. Slow, steady, controlled. I had spent 26 years being invisible. Tonight the entire world was going to see me. We pulled up to the hotel, the lace red carpet, camera flashes. Damien's hand found mine. "Together," he said. "Together," I echoed. We walked through those doors like we owned the world. By the end of the night, we would. The ballroom was a cathedral of excess. Gold chandeliers dripped from 30-foot ceilings like crystallized wealth. Red carpet, the color of blood, ran through the center of the room. 500 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits. Champagne glasses catching the light. Conversations humming with the particular frequency of people who believe they matter. My father's victory gala, presidential campaign launch, the culmination of a lifetime of lies wrapped in patriotic decorations and strategic photo opportunities. I paused at the entrance and let the room see me. The white dress hung differently now. I had had it altered, taken in at the waist. The neckline adjusted to show the hollow of my throat, where Damien's mouth had been hours before. Blood, red lipstick, combat boots hidden under the hem because I had learned the hard way that heels were a liability in a fight. My hair pulled back so severely it made my cheekbones sharp as blades. I looked like a ghost. I looked like a reckoning. Conversations died in waves as we moved through the room. The dark-skinned girl who had been invisible for 26 years, walking in on the arm of the man they called the silencer, both of us moving with the synchronized precision of predators who had already chosen their target. Senator Chase stood near the podium holding court, with donors and followers. He saw us coming, and his face turned the color of old concrete. One hand pressed to his chest. Sophie. His voice cracked. "What are you, hi, Papa?" I smiled. It felt like showing teeth. "I hope you don't mind." Damien and I decided to attend. Security moved fractionally closer. But Damien's people were already in position. Sophia's federal team mixing with his crew, creating a net that looked like ordinary event security, but was tightening like a noose. The senator forced a smile for the watching crowd, of course. "You're always welcome." He looked past me, desperate, scanning the room for an exit. "Though I wish you'd called ahead. I wanted it to be a surprise." I looked past him to the massive screens mounted on either side of the podium, meant to show campaign footage, patriotic montages, the carefully built image of Senator William Chase, man of people. Sophia had hacked them 3 hours ago. They were primed, waiting, Mr. and Mrs. Reyes. A voice from behind us. Smooth, female, familiar. I turned, Bianca. My sister stood there in crimson silk that clung to her like a second skin. Blonde hair over bare shoulders. A smile that could sell lies to saints. She looked perfect, untouchable. She looked like everything I had never been allowed to be. Sophie. Her voice was dipped in false warmth. "I heard about your wedding. How romantic. A rushed ceremony with a crime boss. Very on brand for the family embarrassment." The insult landed exactly where she had aimed it. Years of practice. Years of knowing precisely how to draw blood without raising her voice. But I had spent the last 2 weeks learning to be something other than invisible. I stepped closer, close enough to smell her perfume, expensive, cloying, the same scent she had worn since we were teenagers. Close enough to see the flash of fear that crossed her perfect face. "Bianca," I said softly, "I've been looking for you." Her smile tightened. "Been busy killing Marco Reyes, stealing 400 million, running a trafficking ring using Damien's shipping routes." The color drained from her face. Around us, the ambient noise of the gala continued. Laughter, clinking glasses. A string quartet playing Mozart in the corner, but in our small circle the silence was absolute. "You can't prove any of that," Bianca whispered. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The ledger appeared. 50. 3 entries of our father's sins, including the detailed records of your operations, already sent to the FBI. I paused. And the New York Times, and every major network, and various international whistleblower sites. Just in case. Bianca's hand moved toward her clutch. Fast practiced. Damien was faster. He didn't draw his weapon, didn't need to. Just shifted his weight slightly and blocked her movement with his presence alone. "I wouldn't," he said quietly. Bianca's eyes darted around the room, looking for her people, her backup. The snipers she had positioned in the upper levels with clear sight lines to the podium. Sophia's team had neutralized them 20 minutes ago. "It's over," I said. "The trafficking network, the money laundering, the murder, all of it. You don't understand." Bianca's voice cracked. He was going to sell you, Sophie, our own father. He was going to trade you the same way he traded your mother. I was trying to save you, by killing Marco, by surviving." Her mask was fracturing now, desperation bleeding through the perfect surface. "You got to be invisible. I had to be golden, perfect. His prize, do you know what that's like, being decoration, being valued only for how you photograph?" I stared at my sister, at the girl who had always had everything I wanted, the love, the attention, the belonging, at the monster she had become trying to keep it. "Yes," I said quietly, "I know exactly what that's like. Then help me." She reached for my hand. "Please, we're sisters, we can." The screens flickered. The campaign footage died. The patriotic music stopped, and the ledger appeared on every screen in the ballroom. 50, 3 names, 50, 3 transactions, 20 years of evidence that Senator William Chase had been selling human beings to the highest bidder, including his own wife, including his own daughter. The room went silent, then someone screamed, chaos erupted. Guests scrambling for exits, security rushing the podium, cameras flashing like lightning as journalists understood they were watching the story of the decade. My father stood frozen at the podium, staring at the screens with the expression of a man watching his own execution. Then his eyes found me, pure rage. "You," he breathed, "you did this." I stepped forward into the light, into the cameras, into the moment I had been moving toward since I was 8 years old, and understood that my father looked at me like something he owned. "Yes," I said clearly, "I did this." He moved fast for a man with a failing heart. His hand went to his jacket and came out with a small pistol, the kind kept for protection on the campaign trail, and aimed it at my chest. The room exploded with movement, Secret Service converging, Damien reaching for his weapon, Sophia shouting orders. But my father's finger was already on the trigger. "Sophie," he said, "I'm sorry." Then Damien was there, moving between us with the complete efficiency of a man who had taken hits before, who decided in that single split second that my life was worth more than his own. The gunshot was deafening. Damien's body jerked. Blood bloomed across his chest, bright, spreading. He fell. I screamed. Not performed, not calculated. Pure animal terror as the man I loved collapsed at my feet. I dropped beside him, hands pressing against the wound, blood soaking through my white dress, hot and sticky and impossible. "No," the word came out broken. "No, no, no." Damien's eyes found mine, going hazy. His hand touched my face, leaving crimson across my cheek. "Maya," he whispered, "run." Then his eyes closed. Something inside me broke, not the quiet breaking from the war room, not the cold death of love for a father. This was loud, violent, the kind of breaking that remakes you, that turns you into something new, something dangerous. I stood, turned to face my father. He still held the gun, but his hand was shaking, his face the color of old snow. "Sophie." I didn't mean. I walked toward him. Slow, deliberate, white dress painted red, hands dripping, a mask of grief and fury. The room had gone silent again. Cameras still recording. Witnesses watching. Good. "Give me the gun, Papa." He did, maybe out of guilt. Maybe out of fear. Maybe because some part of him, buried deep beneath all the lies and calculations, knew he deserved what was coming. I took the weapon, felt its weight, looked my father in the eyes. "You sold my mother. For the cameras. For the world. You traded her to the organization for $700 zero. Then you raised me like an asset, planning to sell me the same way. That's not." It's in the ledger, line 47. Dr. Amara Santos delivered, fulfilled. My voice was steady despite the rage burning through every vein. "You made me believe I was worth nothing, that my only value was in cleaning up your disasters, in being invisible, in being useful." I raised the gun. "But I'm not invisible anymore. Sophie, don't." He lunged, tried to grab the weapon, tried to stop what he had created. I pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the ballroom like judgment. My father fell, blood spreading across the white marble. Mixing with Damien's, creating a pool of consequence, I stood over him, gun still raised, and felt nothing. No grief, no regret, no satisfaction, just the cold certainty of something necessary being completed. Then I dropped the gun and screamed again. A performance worthy of an Oscar. I collapsed beside my father's body with tears streaming down my face, perfectly calculated for the cameras that were still recording every second. He tried to kill me. I sobbed. After everything, he tried to kill me. Security converged. Paramedics rushed in. Someone wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. And through all of it, I watched them load Damien's body onto a stretcher. Chest still, face peaceful. I watched them carry him away, and I smiled. The ambulance doors closed with a finality that echoed through my bones. I sat beside Damien's stretcher, still covered in blood, his and my father's hands shaking with adrenaline and carefully performed grief. The paramedic worked calmly, checking vitals, adjusting equipment. "Mrs. Reyes," he said gently, "I'm sorry, there's no pulse." "I know." I reached down and pressed the release on Damien's tactical vest. The protection layer underneath was pristine. Ballistic rated, military grade. The blood was theatrical, small packets that Sophia had rigged that morning, designed to burst on impact and create the perfect visual for every camera in that ballroom. Damien's eyes opened. The paramedic, one of Sophia's people, grinned. "Welcome back, sir." Damien sat up slowly, peeling away the fake blood, wincing at the bruise already forming on his chest where the bullet had hit the vest. His gaze found mine. "Did it work?" I laughed. The sound came out broken, halfway between crying and triumph. "You're dead. My father's dead. I'm a tragic survivor who defended herself after her own father murdered her husband." I showed him my phone. "News alerts flooding in already. You're a hero who died protecting me." His smile came slow, satisfied. "Good." He reached for me, pulling me against his chest despite the paramedic's protests about protocol. His heartbeat steady and strong beneath my ear. "Alive. I'm never doing that again." I whispered against his skin. His hand tangled in my hair. "You were perfect. I thought I lost you. I know, I'm sorry, but we needed it clean, self-defense, justifiable, no legal complications." I pulled back to look at him. Pale beneath the golden skin, dark circles, but alive, breathing, real. I kissed him hard, desperate, tasting blood and sweat and survival. When we broke apart, the paramedic cleared his throat, approaching the safe location. "Federal team is waiting for debrief." The next 6 hours were a blur. Federal agents, lawyers, carefully coordinated statements. Sophia orchestrated all of it with the precision of a conductor, turning the chaos of the gala into a narrative that painted Damien as a hero and me as a courageous survivor who had exposed the most corrupt politician in modern history. Bianca was arrested on 17 counts: murder, human trafficking, racketeering. The surveillance footage combined with the ledger gave prosecutors enough to guarantee she would never see daylight again. The senator's death was confirmed as self-defense. No one questioned it. The cameras had captured everything. I gave my statement with Damien's hand never leaving mine. My voice broke in all the right places. My tears fell on cue. By dawn, we were free to go. Sophia found us in the safe house kitchen drinking coffee that tasted like ash and exhaustion. "It's done," she said simply. "Bianca's in federal custody. The trafficking network is being dismantled. The nuclear arms division is officially gone." She looked at Damien. "You're officially retired. Dead." He corrected. "Dead," she agreed, "which means you're both free." She slid an envelope across the table. "New identities, new accounts, enough money to disappear anywhere in the world." She paused. "Or you could stay. The administration owes you both. You just took down the most corrupt senator in modern history and exposed a trafficking ring that crossed 3 continents. That kind of leverage doesn't expire. What are you offering?" Damien's voice was careful. Legitimacy. Sophia's smile was sharp. "The senator's seat needs to be filled. Special election in 6 months. The party needs a candidate who can't be bought." She looked at me. "Someone who knows exactly where the bodies are buried." The words hung in the air. I thought about it. About the girl who had spent 26 years invisible, fixing scandals, cleaning up messes. about the woman who had just burned her father's empire to ash and walked away clean. "I'm not a politician," I said finally. "You're something better." Elena stood. "You're someone who actually understands how the system works. Think about it." She left. Damien and I sat in silence and watched dawn break through the safe house windows. "Do you want it?" he asked finally. "The power, the position. I want to make sure no one else gets sold." I turned to face him. "I want to burn down every network like my father's. Every man who thinks he can trade women like commodities." His hand cupped my face. "Then we burned them together. 6 months later, I stood in the most powerful office building in the country. Not as a politician. I had turned down the Senate seat despite Sophia's best persuasion. Too visible. Too constrained by committees and press scrutiny. Instead, I had taken a different kind of power. Chief of Staff to the newly elected President, Martinez. A reform candidate who had won in a landslide after the trafficking networks were exposed. The power behind the throne. The one who knew where the bodies were buried because I had buried most of them myself. The private side door opened. The one used only by the inner circle. Sophia had cleared the floor 10 minutes ago. No one would see him. Damien walked in, officially dead, very much alive, moving through the shadows of my new empire with the same efficiency he had moved through the criminal world. He locked the door, crossed to the desk where I sat reviewing documents for a new anti-trafficking task force, sat on the edge of the desk with that familiar predatory grace. "Mrs. Reyes," he said, "you have a meeting in 10 minutes. I know. I didn't look up from the documents." His hand caught my chin, tilted my face up to meet his. "So we should make this quick." His mouth found mine. Hungry, possessive, I stood and pressed against him, hands finding the buttons of his shirt. "We're in the Oval Office." I murmured against his lips. "I know." His hands found my waist, lifted me onto the desk. Papers scattered, makes it better. Someone could. "No one's coming." His mouth moved to my throat. "We have exactly 8 minutes. Then don't waste them." He laughed against my skin. "Never." What followed was fast and fierce and desperate. The union of two people who had survived the worst and claimed the best on the other side. His hands on my body, my nails in his back, both of us moving with the synchronized precision that we had learned through violence and perfected through love. When we finished, I was breathless and beautifully disheveled, hair coming loose, lipstick smeared. Damien fixed his shirt with the efficiency of someone who had done this before. Helped me smooth my skirt, tucked a loose curl behind my ear. "You're beautiful," he said quietly. "I'm a mess. You're mine." His thumb traced my lower lip. "And you're magnificent." The intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Santos, your 9 o'clock is here." I pressed the button. "Send them in." Damien moved to the shadows near the window, invisible again, my secret weapon. The door opened. Senators, Appropriations Committee, men who believed they held power. I smiled. Let them think it. I knew the truth. Power wasn't in the throne. It was in the shadows, in the network I had built. In the man who stood behind me, watching, protecting, partnering in the dynasty we had forged from blood and fire, and everything we refused to give up on. The senator had wanted a warranty, a guarantee against loss. Instead, he had created a queen, and queens don't just survive. They conquer.